All right, so I just got back from the movie theater where I watched The Odyssey in IMAX, by the way. Which, if you're gonna go see The Odyssey, you should go see it in IMAX, since I believe that's what the movie or the filmmakers shot it in. But yeah, regardless, I as I'm recording this, I just got back from the movie theater where I saw The Odyssey, and I wanted to do a quick, or I don't know if it's gonna be quick, but a review of the film and basically like how accurate or not how I mean how accurate it was with regards to like whether or not it was faithful to the Homeric text and where it deviates. Also, the things I'm gonna go over the things that I enjoyed about the film. This also the things that I disliked about the film. I'm not going to talk about the race swaps since I already discussed that in my previous video on the Odyssey. So if you want to hear my thoughts about the race swaps in this film, you can go watch my previous video. Um, but yeah, this I wanted to do this review. This is not going to be in my normal video essay format. This is just going to be like me just giving my thoughts, like kind of off the cuff. Um, my initial thoughts after like walking out of the movie theater. Um, but yeah, I guess as I said, I'm gonna break this video down into the things that I thought were good about the film or what I liked versus what I disliked and like wished that Christopher Nolan did not do with this film. So basically, the good versus the bad. Um, so why don't we start off with the things that I thought were good? Um, First, obviously, what's most important to a film is whether or not you're entertained by it or you're captivated and basically like glued to the screen. So I thought that the film was captivating and it was very entertaining. I wasn't bored at all. I mean, I when I was getting my tickets for this film, I noticed that the first thing I saw that was that the film is almost 3 hours, and I was just like, "Holy shit, 3 hours!" And I could see like people maybe like getting bored during the first hour, but for me, luckily, I was not bored at all, and my eyes were glued to the screen, and the IMAX made the film or the movie experience even better, because like if you feel like you're immersed in like what's going on within the film.
Probably what I appreciated most about the film was the grand and epic scale that Nolan was able to pull off. The whole time I was just in awe of the grand scope and scale, uh, which I think is really important because the original Odyssey poem was an epic. It's part of the genre of epic poetry.
I thought the cinematography and like the different film shots were really amazing. The special effects were incredible. I mean, this is to be expected with a big budget Christopher Nolan film, so not surprising. But regardless, still thought I still really enjoyed the special effects. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie or The Odyssey is nominated for like not only a bunch of Academy Awards, but the Academy Award for both cinematography and also uh, the Academy Award for special effects or visual effects. Um, I mean, here's my Oscar prediction. I think the Odyssey is going to get a bunch of nominations and it's going to win cinematography and Oscar for visual effects. So, uh, come next February or March or whenever the Oscars takes place, we'll see if I'm right. But some of my favorite scenes include the Cyclops scene, which was which was terrifying and unnerving. One thing where Nolan deviates from the original text, or one difference between the film and the original epic poem by Homer is the Cyclops doesn't really talk, and there's no dialogue between Odysseus and the Cyclops. For like most of its screen time, it's just like this silent monster that's very terrifying and unnerving. And you hear it speak a little bit, but you can't really understand it. Uh, and in fact, like I forget who it was, but one of Odysseus's men said, "Oh, it can talk." Uh, but um, yeah, I mean, so basically, it doesn't really talk, and that sort of gives sort of like the noises it makes, and especially uh, when it's like crying out and or yelling out and or I guess roaring out in pain when it's Odysseus and his men like poke it in the eye with the scorching hot or scalding pillar. Um, yeah, that was obviously in a good way as far as films go. It was pretty terrifying. The only thing with that scene though that I'm a little disappointed with is that because Cyclops doesn't really talk, the the uh the I am nobody line was removed where the Cyclops asks what Odysseus's name is and he says I am nobody. And I don't know, that just disappointed me because that's a I think that's a one of my favorite lines from the text, and it shows like how clever and uh, cunning Odysseus is with coming up with plans or schemes to like get out of uh, certain with like getting out of uh, like dangerous situations that they're him and his men are in. But yeah, they're and also what's funny the other reason why that I was disappointed that that line was removed was that once the Cyclops, like in the original Odyssey text, once the Cyclops cries out in pain, he says something like, he says, I'm being I'm being killed by nobody through treachery, which is like a kind of a, which is like a comedic or funny line, or like it just shows uh, sort of like the cleverness of Odysseus because once the Cyclops, and for context, in the original text there are other Cyclops, like the Cyclops that uh, captures Odysseus and his men has like Cyclops neighbors, so to speak, who have their own caves. But anyway, once the Cyclops in the text cries out, "I am being killed by nobody." In fact, I have the Richard Lattimore translation right here. I'll even pull it up or try to find it. So yeah, in the original text, Odysseus says, "Nobody is my name. My father and mother call me nobody, as do all the others who are my companions." So I spoke, and he answered me in pitiless spirit, "Then I will eat nobody after his friends, and the others I will eat first. That shall be my guest present to you." So that's just like a very clever and funny line from the original text, and it's I don't know. I was kind of pissed that it didn't make it into this film. I don't know, and I know Nolan said that he didn't for some reason they couldn't include it, but I don't know. It should have been included because it's a classic line from the original Odyssey. Um, and then the Cyclops yells out to his Cyclops neighbors in the original text, "Good friends, nobody is killing me by force or treachery." Yeah, anyway, the line, "Good friends, nobody is killing me by force or treachery," which is funny. Uh, but yeah, it's disappointing it didn't make it into the film. Um, Also, the Circe scene was very creepy, but the effects were amazing. Like how realistic it looked when Circe was turning all of Odysseus's men into pigs as they're like ravenously and uh consuming the meat that she serves them. and then like you'll see like her just like using her supernatural powers to just turn them into pigs. It was a very unsettling scene. Um, I thought the performance by Matt Damon as Odysseus was very well done. I think he captures the I think he captures the description given in the original Odyssey text of Odysseus being or Odysseus being described as the godlike Odysseus. And I think Matt Damon was able to pull that off, especially with the final fight scene where he's Odysseus is able to take on all the suitors and kill them.
The only thing with Damon's performance or portrayal as Odysseus is I didn't get, or I didn't see as much of the clever or cunning aspects of Odysseus shown in this film as he's depicted in the original Odyssey of Homer. Um, but yeah, it looks like with Matt Damon's portrayal, it he emphasizes more of like Odysseus being uh dealing with trauma and being like a almost like desolate man who's been stranded on on like Calypso, first on Calypso's island, where he's been eating the lotus flower for like things like 7 years uh at that point. And then also uh yeah, it seems like he's emphasizing like sort of this like Odysseus that's dealing with PTSD. Basically, he comes across as a more distraught or devastated Odysseus that has to deal with how he's responsible for his crew, all of his crew being killed on the journey back, and what he did during the sack of Troy. Uh, and that seems to come at a cost of minimizing the cleverness of Odysseus that you see in the original poem.
I thought Anne Hathaway gave a really good performance as Penelope, uh, where she captures her loyalty and also her grief and uh, emotions in dealing with Odysseus being away uh, or being gone for 20 years at that point. Uh, Also, Charlize Theron as gave a good performance as Calypso. Um, and I thought Benny Safdie did a pretty good job as Agamemnon. And although I talked about the armor inaccuracy in my previous video, it was interesting how gave Agamemnon like this sort of kind of DC, kind of DC superhero armor, but also he made Agamemnon appear like a larger super soldier compared to the rest of the Greeks, which emphasizes that he's the leader of the Greek or Achaean army, which I thought was interesting. I thought Robert Pattinson gave a really good performance as Antinous, along with the other suitors. Uh, I thought they all did a really good job depicting the suitors as parasites leeching off the palace in Ithaca. Where they're all hoping to marry Penelope, and they're clearly violating Greek custom of zendaya, which is where when people or your fellow Greeks or fellow men are traveling to another deme or city state or whatever, you're supposed to show them hospitality and allow them to stay and protect them. And Xenia is emphasized throughout the film as an important ancient Greek norm, which I appreciated. I feel like that's central to not just the original Odyssey, but a lot of ancient Greek texts. And I also appreciated how Nolan included the contrast between Penelope, the loyal wife to Odysseus, who remains loyal even after 20 years, versus Helen of Troy, who, I mean, Helen of Troy only appears for like a few minutes, but Um, but anyway, the contrast between Penelope versus Helen of Troy, who runs off with Paris and causes a war, so therefore not being faithful to Menelaus, and then Clytemnestra, who who engages in treachery by plotting the murder with her love by plotting the murder of Agamemnon with her lover. Um, I thought the depiction of Hades or the underworld was decent. It decently captured the gloom that I imagine uh, Hades cap or that I imagine Hades is or that I imagine Hades looks like. Although I thought maybe the dreariness and darkness could have been emphasized more. It kind of looks like Odysseus and his men are on a beach after sunset. I was kind of hoping for more underworld type vibes. And I always pictured the souls in Hades as sort of like shadows of their living selves, but in the film they look like they have non-decomposed bodies that were raised from the dead. But maybe I'm just being a little bit nitpicky. Um, the fight choreography was well done, especially for the Temple of Athena fight scene where Odysseus, in his disguise as a beggar, um, comes to warn Telemachus and to prevent his or save him from getting murdered by the bandits that were hired by Antinius. Um, but um, and also I thought the probably my favorite scene was Odysseus's final fight in the palace at Ithaca against all the suitors. I thought that was I was really entertained by that. I thought that was really well done. Um, but for some reason, the fight with the dead suitor's family or dead suitors' families and the subsequent intervention of Zeus and Athena was conspicuously left out. Now for the bad or things I did not like. For anyone who has read the Odyssey or is an ancient Greek history nerd, it's glaringly obvious that Nolan took many liberties with the text and left out a lot of parts from the original text. Um, what annoyed me the most was how the role of the gods was completely diminished. So throughout the film, they're alluded to, and they have like an ominous presence when Odysseus and his men are on their journey and they're at sea, or for example, uh, after they blind the Cyclops and escape, one of Odysseus's men says how mentions how that was the son of Poseidon, and there's this understanding that they've pissed off Poseidon. Um, but we don't, and they mention Zeus. Um, and it's obviously they attribute the storms at sea to Zeus, but the only deities we see actually see portrayed in the film are Athena and Calypso, and even Athena's role is greatly, I would argue, greatly diminished because in the in Homer's Odyssey, the original text, she, she is she's a part of the initial assembly of the gods that's headed by Zeus, and she has a lot of dialogue with she speaks to Zeus about helping Odysseus reach his homeland or return home to Ithaca. And in the first few books of the Odyssey, she Athena shows her ability or is portrayed as a shapeshifter, and for example she changes or she disguises herself as Mentes, and then I think she disguises herself as Telemachus at one point. But regardless, she's in the first few books. She's also, helping Telemachus, uh, you know, find out where his father Odysseus is, and she accompanies him to first to Pylos and uh, then to Sparta, where Menelaus is, and she also has, and as you can imagine, she has a lot of dialogue with Telemachus, and she wants to help him out in the original text, but she only in the film she only Athena only appears as like kind of an apparition to Odysseus, which like shows his, well, she appears as a in the image of a priestess of Athena that was killed during the sack of Troy, and which shows Odysseus's guilt for the atrocities that were committed by the Greeks during the sack of Troy, including killing the priestess of Athena, which is a great disrespect to the goddess. Um, but Athena only appears for like a few minutes in the film, so her role is greatly reduced. Um, yeah, we don't see her helping out. I mean, even though she appears with Odysseus, we don't really see her helping him out. She just like appears to him and like causes and like sort of has a little dialogue with him. But we don't see Athena helping out Telemachus as she does in the first few books of the Odyssey, the original Homeric poem. She so that's like one of the main examples of how Nolan like great how Nolan's version of the Odyssey greatly diverges uh from the original text and takes a lot of liberties. But going back to like the broader category of, or the broader point of like all the gods roles being reduced or basically being non-existent. They just have an ominous presence that's felt, but we don't see them. Uh, as I mentioned, there in the first book of the Odyssey. So book one. If I'll just pull it up here. I have my Lattimore translation on hand. Um, like there we in book one we see the first of several assemblies um, assemblies held by the gods, or meetings held by the gods, headed by Zeus. And so and Athena takes like an active role in the assembly of the gods. So first she says, "Son of Kronos," referring to Zeus, "our father, O Lord of Lordy, O lordliest of the mighty. Aegisthus indeed has been struck down in death well merited. Let any other man who does thus perish as he did. But the heart in me is torn for the sake of wise Odysseus, unhappy man, who still, far from his friends, is suffering griefs on the sea-washed island, the navel of all the waters, a wooded island, and there a goddess has made her dwelling place. She is the daughter of the malignant Atlas." And then she goes on, and then ends, "Why, Zeus, are you now so harsh with him?" So she's addressing Zeus and is being sort of is having a disagreement with him. Then in turn, Zeus, who gathers the clouds, made answer, "My child, what sort of word escaped your teeth's barrier? How could I forget Odysseus the godlike, he who is beyond all other men in mind, and who beyond others has given sacrifice to the gods, who hold wide heaven? It is the earth encircler Poseidon who, ever relentless, nurses a grudge because of the Cyclops, whose eye he blinded. For Polyphemus, like a god, whose power is greatest over all the Cyclops. Thusa, a nymph, was his mother, and she was the daughter of Phorcys, lord of the barren salt water." And then he goes on, "For his sake, Poseidon, shaker of the earth, although he does not kill Odysseus, yet drives him back from the land of his fathers. But come, let all of let all of us who are here work on his homecoming and see to it that he returns. So that implies that Zeus feels sympathy for Odysseus and he wants him to return home, but it's just his brother it's just Zeus's brother Poseidon who has a grudge, to say the least, against Odysseus, and is like is also the main antagonist in the text towards Odysseus. And as a result, he's Poseidon himself is causing Odysseus to be steered off course from his return to Ithaca. But as I just read, Zeus and the other gods want to help Odysseus return home. Uh, in fact, I'll even just pull it up again. Poseidon shall put away his anger. But then, actually, previously they say, so, yeah. So, but come, let all of us who are here work on his homecoming and see to it that he returns. So, basically, Zeus wants to prevent or stop. Zeus wants to stop his brother Poseidon from preventing Odysseus from returning home. He makes the decision, or dictates that he and the other gods shall help Odysseus. So that to me indicates that Zeus and the Olympian gods have a crucial role in the original Odyssey text, and the fact that it's bizarre and pretty baffling to me that Nolan would just leave out uh, all but completely leave out the gods and just limit them or reduce them to an ominous presence. Like they're like I was kind of when I first heard about the Odyssey, was gonna when the Odyssey was supposed to hit theaters in July of 2026. I was like obviously looking forward to it, and um I was curious to know who would play Poseidon and who would play Zeus. I think I already heard that Zendaya was cast as Athena, but I wanted to see who would play Zeus and Poseidon. Um, but yeah, now it just it looks like Nolan all but completely cut them out of the film. Um, yeah, we only see the storms at sea attributed to Poseidon and Zeus, but we never see the deities themselves. Um, and I would argue that Zeus as a figure, uh, Zeus as a figure and a character in the original Odyssey text who plays like a crucial role in helping Odysseus return home, and wants to help him because, as he said, Odysseus is loyal or makes his sacrifices to the gods, and in return, the gods including Zeus, want to help him get back to the land of his fathers, or his forefathers. But yeah, regardless, the like a figure or a character like that who's that instrumental to Odysseus's return to Ithaca, like I think I think he should be included in the film and should like have an on-screen presence or appearance. Um, and also, yeah, and Poseidon's the main antagonist in the original text. So he should make an appearance in the film, but Nolan decided to make Antonius the suitor and the suitors as the main antagonists, with Antonius as the main antagonist. But I was pretty pissed that the gods, outside of Athena and Calypso, I was pretty pissed that like Zeus and Poseidon don't make any appearance because number one, obviously, anyone who's at least familiar with ancient Greek mythology wants to see the major Greek gods in this film. But more specifically, as I said, Zeus is arguably an important figure in the original Odyssey poem. And Poseidon's the main antagonist. Uh, so, uh, And then the other thing that annoyed me, or I was pretty pissed off about, was so another area where I disliked, or one of the things I disliked about this film adaptation is the dialogue between Achilles and Odysseus was removed from the Hades scene, where Odysseus and his crew goes to the underworld or Hades, and they encounter the dead. In fact, Achilles is removed as a character altogether. I think he might have been referenced at one point, if I recall. But the Achilles dialogue is replaced with Sinon, uh, who one is not even a Homeric character, but the dialogue in the film between Sinon and Odysseus is basically, it revolves around how Sinon's resentment or anger towards Odysseus for uh, lying to him or not telling him how Odysseus was in the Trojan horse, and how Sinon was left unaware or ignorant about how Odysseus would be one of the soldiers in who hides in the Trojan horse, and then he's killed for Odysseus. Um, but but yeah, no, but in the original in the original Odyssey text, let me just try and I'll even read it out loud here. Oh, and also they took out the dialogue in Hades between Odysseus and his mother Anticlea. I mean, I don't know if that's like super important, but what I'm more pissed about is the dialogue between Achilles and uh, uh, Odysseus. But yeah, in the original text, uh, although they did keep the uh, dialogue between Agamemnon and Odysseus. Oh yeah, here it is. After this, there came to us the soul of Peleus' son Achilles, and the soul of Patroclus, and the soul of stately Antilochus. Um, Let me just skip forward. The soul of swift-footed Achilles, Scion of Icos, knew me, and full of lamentation he spoke to me in winged words. Son of Laertes and seed of Zeus, resourceful Odysseus, hard man, what made you think of this bigger endeavor? How could you endure to come down here to Hades, place where the senseless dead men dwell, mere imitations of perished mortals? So he, so he spoke, and I again said to him in answer, Son of Peleus, far the greatest of the Achaeans, Achilles, I came I came for the need to consult Tiresias, if he might tell me some plan by which I might come back to the rocky Ithaca, for I have not yet been near Achaean country, nor ever set foot on my land, but always I have troubles. Achilles, no man before has been more blessed than you, nor ever will be. Before, when you were alive, we Argives honored you as we did the gods. Now in this place you have great authority over the dead. Do not grieve, even in death, Achilles. So I spoke, and he in return said to me in answer, O shining Odysseus, never try to console me for dying. I would rather follow the plow as thrall to another man, one with no land. I would rather follow the plow as thrall to another man, one with no land allotted him, and not much to live on, than be king over all the perished dead. Um, so, and the reason why uh, that part of the text or that dialogue is so important is in the Iliad, with the character of Achilles, the dilemma that he was facing was because there was a prophecy that he would die during in the war. So the prophecy he had to face was whether he should choose to life, or should he choose glory on the battlefield, like eternal, even after death he would have eternal glory on the battlefield. So glory on the battlefield versus living, and obviously he chose glory on the battlefield, uh, through his like rage towards Hector. And This is, then this comes back in this, in Odysseus's dialogue with Achilles in the underworld, where now Achilles, sort of regrets this or mourns that he chose glory on the battlefield. He said he would rather have like a plot of land that he would farm, than be worshipped, as Odysseus said, and like have eternal glory. Yet, for some reason, Nolan decided to. I don't know if it had to do with like maybe backlash. I don't know if this is true, but I don't know if it had to do with the rumored backlash towards Elliot Page playing Achilles, which would have been ridiculous. Because I mean, look at the stature of Elliot Page, who looks like a 5'1", uh, like a 5'1" prepubescent boy with not a single ounce of muscle on his body, versus like, you know, even like Brad Pitt as Achilles in the movie Troy, who actually like looks like an all powerful, like almost, or not almost, like divine warrior who's unbeatable or seemingly unbeatable. Uh, yeah, obviously Elliot Page the does not fit the character of Achilles, or doesn't look anything like a Greek warrior. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if Nolan decided to just get rid of Achilles as a character altogether from due to backlash. I don't know if I don't think that's true, but regardless, Nolan just like completely cut Achilles as a character from the underworld scene and the Odyssey altogether, and replaced it with Sinon, who again is not a Homeric character. And as I mentioned, or alluded to, Elliot Page does not look like a Greek warrior at all. So in the first scene where you see the Trojan horse um, on the shore, uh, of Troy, and then you see Sinon, played by Elliot Page, just start running towards the approaching Trojans um, who are coming to check out to see what this Trojan horse is. Uh, like Elliot Page running in Greek armor, or not even Greek armor, it's inaccurate armor. But seeing Elliot Page run in all that armor was like extremely distracting and just kind of comical. But yeah, overall, Elliot Page's performance was not impressive, and like having him in the film at all was just it was very distracting. Like, sorry, Elliot Page is not a Greek. Does not look anything. Elliot Page does not look like any. Elliot Page does not look anything like a Greek soldier or a Greek warrior or anything of that sort. He doesn't have the stature or physique for that. Uh, so then another performance I really did not like and thought was pretty bad was John Bernthal as Menelaus. Uh, I also disliked the way Menelaus was just portrayed altogether in this movie, from his costume design, which, a little tangent on that. In my previous video, uh, which, that I uploaded like almost a week before the release of the film, uh, I in the first half of the video I talked about how the armor is just completely, and the costume design is just completely inaccurate and looks nothing like Mycenaean clothing or armor. But then I didn't realize how bad, because I only saw the trailers at that point. I didn't realize how bad the costume design for Menelaus would be, especially in the scene where him and Telemachus are just they're out hunting birds, and they're discussing, like, where is Odysseus while they're hunting, and both and Od- and Telemachus and Menelaus look like they're straight out of Robin Hood Men in Tights rather than late Bronze Age uh, Mycenaean Greece. And this is actually an important thing to discuss, or an important inaccuracy to uh, focus on and criticize, as I'll talk about later review, because uh, this isn't like a Nolan doesn't make this like a timeless, or Nolan doesn't make the setting in some like uh vague time period. He's like very specific, but I'll get back to that. Um yeah, so I dislike the way Menelaus was portrayed, from his costume design or clothing to the fact that he was portrayed as being bald. Like, he's literally fucking bald in the movie. When in uh, when I know Christopher Nolan read the original Homeric text, or he read the Emily Wilson translation. Uh, but uh, that's just bizarre that he would portray Menelaus as bald when in the Homeric poems he's clearly described as being fair-haired, meaning that he has a nice head of hair, which means he has a nice head of light-colored hair. So yeah, he's not described as bald at all in the original Odyssey text by Homer. Um, yeah, as I said in the previous video, the armor and costume design was just straight ass and very historically inaccurate. I mean, I broke it down in my previous video. But the one thing I will say though is, which this is like kind of, I was a little bit surprised, but also it's just it's kind of bizarre. The Trojans, like early on in the film, and also throughout the flashbacks, because in the film, this is one thing I thought was kind of cool. They throughout the film, flashbacks to the end of the Trojan War and the sack of Troy are um, they're placed throughout the film. They're weaved throughout the film. Um, or yeah, the flashbacks are integrated throughout the film. But yeah, anyways, I thought that was, from a filmmaking perspective, um, I thought that was a nice touch, or I thought that was pretty cool. But anyway, the let's get back to the Trojan armor itself. So yeah, in the beginning of the film, when you see the Trojans approaching the Trojan horse buried on the beach, and then throughout the film, uh, throughout the flashbacks to the sack of Troy, the Trojans are the only ones with somewhat accurate armor, even though it looks like the Trojans' armor's 3D printed or something. It's got like this light gray, very almost cardboard like quality to it, which is doesn't even look like it's bronze or iron. But yeah, regardless, setting aside the 3D printed look to it, the Trojans are the only ones with somewhat accurate armor, because they have what looks like their helmets look like they're in the style of like 5th century BC Corinthian helmets. So I kind of appreciated how the Trojans' armor was depicted in this film. But ironically, even though the Trojans had the most accurate armor or costumes throughout the film, uh, it isn't. I mean, it's even though the Trojans had the accurate armor or somewhat accurate armor, it's not accurate to the Trojans themselves, especially since they're shown with Corinthian looking helmets. When if we want to go off of how the Trojans were depicted in classical Greco-Roman art, they should have these very distinctive Phrygian caps that they're always like. If you look at any frescoes or mosaics the class from Greco-Roman antiquity, the Trojans are always shown with Phrygian caps or hats. Um, the probably the other very distracting uh, aspect to this film, or the other distracting part of this film, is Travis Scott as a bard. It was just like very, very, like I had to hold myself back from laughing. It's just like very bizarre and very comical. Like I couldn't take it seriously. It's like, Travis, my dude, you can't even stay within the dactylic hexameter or the iambic pentameter or any poetic meter. Like, you just like, yeah, he just yells words like a ship, a war, a man, and then he like stomps his staff on in between a ship and a war. He stomps his staff on the floor or on the table, and it's like, my dude, that's not. You can't even stay within any poetic meter. Like, what is this? Uh, and also at the beginning, he's like, Travis Scott's the first person, or his character is the first person we see in the film, and that would have been a great opportunity to begin the film with, or have the first line be, "Tell me, Muse," or "Sing to me, Muse," which is the very first line, within the original Odyssey text. Um, and Also, I'm not going to talk about, as I said at the beginning of this review, I'm not going to talk about any of the race swapping because I talked about that and discussed that in my previous video. But just to talk about Helen of Troy briefly, the I don't know, the one thing I will say is like the last line, or the last thing she says to Telemachus is just yeah, I'm sorry. She basically says, "I'm sorry for causing this mess, which resulted in your father being away." Or I'm sorry for. She said that, "I'm sorry for causing this mess that has affected you and Penelope." And it's just like, okay, that's one way to deal with it. And also in the original Odyssey poem by Homer, uh, Helen Helen is supposed to give uh, Helen is supposed to give gifts to Telemachus and his companions that were visiting Sparta, but I guess Nolan decided to just have Helen in the film say, "Yeah, I'm sorry for causing all this mess that has led to uh, the grief and so many problems for you and Penelope." It's just like, uh, okay. That's certainly a way of dealing with it. uh, so I guess uh, the last thing I want to talk about, which sort of ties into the armor, the historically inaccurate armor, and the argument that this also, I'll once again address the argument that who cares about historical inaccuracy? The Odyssey's a myth. Um, so I will say Christopher Nolan, I think, would disagree with those people, and the way he decided to write this script or make this movie. He places this his version of the Odyssey within a very specific historical time period of the specifically the late Bronze Age. Um, because throughout the movie, the sea peoples are alluded to, which, spoiler alert, towards the end of the film, Odysseus implies that he and his crew are responsible for all the attacks that are attributed to the sea peoples. Um, would, um, and then they then they also talk about the end of the uh, a few times. The end of the Age of Bronze is referenced, which is just weird. Like, it's kind of there's like a remarkable self-awareness by the characters about what specific time period they're in, and uh, and how they're aware that they are living during a a time period that's attributed by archaeologists to the time period that they're living, because Bronze Age was a term coined, I forget by which archaeologist. I can't remember off the top of my head, but regardless, the fact that these characters are aware that they're living in the quote unquote Bronze Age, uh, and So that's weird, and this shows that Nolan places the setting of this film in actually in the late Bronze Age as uh, the poets, the poet Homer, or the multiple poets known as Homer, uh, originally did with the setting of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Uh, so the fact that Nolan places sets this film during the late Bronze Age makes the inaccuracies even more egregious because uh, he is placing he's making it clear that this is taking place during a very real historical time period with a very specific type of armor with regards to the Mycenaeans, and there's a specific type of clothing that's appropriate for a Mediterranean climate during the late Bronze Age. Yet, as I discussed in the previous video, there's like a weird mix of like cliched Hollywood sword and sandal armor, medieval fantasy looking clothing, like Robin Hood men in tights type clothing, uh, and also just like bizarre, like kind of Bedouin looking clothing, insert like when Odysseus disguises himself as a beggar. Um, but yeah, and oddly, interestingly enough, uh, like during like the flashbacks to when uh the people's the people of Ithaca and the surrounding regions are enlisting for the Trojan War, like the clothing that everyone's wearing in those scenes, uh it looks like they're wearing clothing from classical Greco-Roman Mediterranean. But yeah, it's just the costume design is just a weird hodgepodge or mix of just different, like a mix of some, I guess, some accurate clothing with like cliched Hollywood sword and sandal and trousers and medieval fantasy looking clothing. Uh, and I don't know, it's so basic. So the fact that the allusion to the end of the Age of Bronze and the Sea Peoples makes it clear that this is taking place during the late Bronze Age. Uh, the fact that that is made clear refutes or make refutes the argument from the people who say who cares, it's just a myth, Odyssey is just a myth. When Nolan is making an effort to uh, or Nolan made it clear that the setting is the late Bronze Age. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the film, despite my uh, despite my criticisms and despite the things I did not like. I really enjoyed the plot and pacing of the film. Um, it's sort of I enjoyed the grand scale and the epic nature of this film. I thought Christopher Nolan the uh, captured the epic nature of the original Odyssey text. Um, as I said, I like the cinematography and the special effects. Um, I think if you're just like a fan of fantasy films, or you're a fan of Christopher Nolan films, or you're into things like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, I think you'll really enjoy this film. Uh, or if you're an ancient history nerd or an ancient met, or if you're like an archaeology or ancient Mediterranean history nerd like me, I think you'll still enjoy it, but you'll still have that voice in your head throughout the film saying like, okay, this is not accurate. This is not accurate. And then if you've read the Iliad and the Odyssey, the original Homeric text or the original Homeric poems, you'll have that voice that's saying, okay, why are the gods not in this film? Why was the Achilles dialogue removed? Also, was the part of the why was the Telemachus visiting Nestor at Pylos removed? Uh, why why were these why were certain dialogues removed? Why was the dialogue between Hermes and Calypso removed? Which is another thing. I wish they included the dialogue between Hermes and Calypso, uh, where Hermes makes it clear that, hey, Zeus is willing it, or he has decreed that Odysseus is going to go home now. Calypso, you need to get out of the way and let him go home. But anyways, you if you're an ancient history nerd or a big fan of the Homeric texts, you'll have that voice in your head saying, okay, there's all these inaccuracies. That's inaccurate. Where's this original line? Or where's this? How come they didn't say this? But, overall, it's a very enjoyable film. Uh, I definitely think it's going to be nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards and at least win Best Special Effects or Best Visual Effects and Cinematography. And it's probably going to do similar numbers to like Oppenheimer, which I think is another Christopher Nolan film. Uh, but yeah, definitely whether you're an ancient history nerd or just a fan of like fantasy films or you're a fan of Christopher Nolan films, I think you should definitely go see this. You should definitely go see The Odyssey.